Welcome to Fan Question Friday.
Road Trip Edition. All the questions that we'll be answering was submitted to us on our Instagram pages and our website, and it's about our latest travels to the United States.
Question number 1 comes from Emilio22. How far did you guys travel and what states did you go to?
Well, we went to 9 states in total, including Washington, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, Nebraska, South Dakota, and North Dakota. And then we headed in to Canada and went to Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC.
The second question comes from Hurt Me Pretty Beauty. Did you plan your road trip before you went, or was it just spontaneous? Also, you two are amazing and I love you. Totes OTP goals! Exclamation point, exclamation point.
It was mostly spontaneous. We had the days booked off. But as far as where we went, we just kind of
Wung it based on the day?
Yeah, just Googled stuff before we went. The third question was by Resident Silly.
We're sorry for any names mispronounced.
Which place you visited was your favorite and why?
Ooh, my favorite place is probably Montana because we went on the Going to the Sun Road, which is one of the most breathtaking drives you'll ever go on in your entire life.
And I really like South Dakota. We camped there by the lakes a couple times in the Black Hills, and then there was Deadwood and Mount Rushmore, which was absolutely amazing too. Question 4 is by @Rocky334. What were some of the best foods that you ate on your trip?
Oh, the caramel roll. The last day in North Dakota, we had a caramel roll, which is their state food. And for anyone who doesn't know, it's basically a cinnamon bun covered in caramel sauce instead of icing. Oh, to die for.
I liked the slopper when we were in Pueblo, Colorado. We went to the very first bar that ever served the slopper and invented it. And it was definitely a life-changing moment for me.
Also, all of the snacks. They have looser food regulation standards in America, so all the snacks are better because they can just put chemicals and garbage right in there. Cheez-Its and ices and oh.
But for the most part, we cooked in our trailer because we brought our trailer with us, and we cooked a lot of good food on the barbecue and ate a lot of grilled cheese while we were parked on the side of the road.
Question number 5 comes from Jinx Salon and Beauty. Settle a debate that I'm having with my friends. Which one of the Dakotas is better?
Hands down, South Dakota.
Yeah, North Dakota's really boring. It's basically just Saskatchewan. They have the caramel roll, and that's pretty much it. It's the Saskatchewan of America.
Yeah, that's what they should call it. The Saskatchewan of America.
Question 6 comes from Dalen Carter Z with a Z. My little sister and I are totally in love with you two, and we followed your whole trip on Insta, and it feels like we were right there with you. OMG, OMG.
Thank you.
I just wanted to know who has better taste in music. It's me.
Definitely me.
And who got to be the car DJ. As the passenger, I mostly got to be the car DJ, but there was a couple rogue exceptions.
Well, Sirius XM mostly DJ'd for us because they have good stations, but you can set your favorite artists and your favorite songs whenever they come on, or I'll just hit the button to turn them on. And she's a terrible DJ.
Question 7 comes from Nikki6-2. Oh, like Nikki Six.
Yeah.
But 2.0.
Motley Crue, I think.
Shout out to the next Nikki Six. When you go on road trips, do you use a music streaming service? If so, which one would you recommend? And do you have any neutral, happy song recommendations for long road trips? My girlfriend and I are going on a 2-week trip to Vermont on Monday, and she likes poppy top 40s music, and I like more old school country music. I want us to meet somewhere in the middle.
Well, we use Sirius, and I mean, she likes a lot of country. I like hip hop and rock, so you get a balance of both.
B-52s.
B-52s.
I defy you to be sad and listen to the B-52s.
That was a game changer.
It was wild. We definitely thought that they only had the 2 songs that everyone's heard of, Love Shack and Rock Lobster. Turns out they have a whole album of just bangers.
It's amazing.
So good.
Number 8 here is by Susan Point 11. What were like the biggest differences in cultures that you noticed from going from Canada to America and going from state to state?
Actually, there wasn't that many. There's not as many as people talk about there being. Like, I think it might be different if you go from, like, Canada to the deep south, or Canada to even, like, a coastal state or something. But everyone was a lot friendlier and happier than we thought that they would be. Because everyone up in Canada talks about how Americans are mean and they're rude and they don't know anything. But everyone we talked to was really friendly and really nice.
And lots of guns.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a gun.
You go, well, from state to state, I noticed, especially going into Nebraska, like everyone in Nebraska just has a gun. And when we were in some states in Colorado, there's signs on doors saying don't bring guns in. But in Nebraska, it's like everyone just has a gun on them.
Well,
That's
Colorado
what it
was wild, because even when you go into the state fair, like if you go into an exhibition or something in Canada, they like check your bag and they check to make sure you don't have any weapons and stuff. And we were in the Colorado State Fair, and there was people lined up at like the Republican Party booths, just gun on their hip, just
Yeah,
rolling with it.
a lot of guns. Number 9 is from Mtastic 1454. Please explain what happened with the ferrets in Colorado. I got to know.
Oh, guys. Okay, so we spent like 8 hours in Colorado looking for a campsite. Could not find one anywhere. Fuck Colorado. Anyways, so we stopped at this truck stop, and Matt went in to pee and to see if they had like anywhere that we could stay in the truck stop, because sometimes they'll let you park there and like have a shower. And it's basically a parking lot campground. And these two dudes pulled up in a tiny car across like 4 parking lots. They get out, they're screaming, they're freaking out. One guy's pulling shit out of the back seat. They're yelling furiously, and then out of nowhere, all the fighting stops and they're just making out. Like, equally as furiously. Just aggressively making out. And then they're telling each other that they love each other, and it looks like the fight is over and they're making up. And then one of the two guys, the bigger of the two, goes, "But I don't like them though." And then out of nowhere, they just start fighting all over again. And this guy's like throwing these kennels that look like they're for like little dogs or cats out of the car, like turned over sideways, just everywhere. And then they started talking about it, and the them that they were talking about was actually ferrets. And they had lost one within the car, so they found most of the cages, but then one of the cages was empty. So they're like pulling this car apart, and they're pulling out pillows and sleeping bags, and like it looked like a family of 4 could have lived in their tiny car. And then I think they found the ferret because they stopped looking and started shoving everything back into the car. And then they both got back into the car, but they didn't like drive away. They just kind of sat there for a little bit, and then they started making out again. So I think all the ferrets are safe and all the people are happy, but it was wild.
Yeah, I didn't experience any of this because I was in the truck stop and trying to find a place, and while I was in the bathroom, the toilet broke on me, so I came out of the bathroom with my own piss on my leg, so it was not a good moment for me there. Oh, this one you asked me.
Question 10 comes from Ubadu123. I follow you both on Insta, and I saw that you had to go to Home Depot halfway through your trip to fix your trailer, but you never said why. What happened? Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark.
Well, we were driving in Colorado, and I decided, like, I looked in my mirrors, and I saw a piece of our trailer flapping in the wind.
Not like a little piece, like a huge piece of trailer.
It was like the front half of our trailer was flapping in the wind. So I pulled over to a rest stop, and I found some string just to tie it down so it didn't blow off onto the freeway. And then got back on the road, found the campground to stay at, and then we went to Home Depot to buy a bunch of wood and screws and duct tape to fix it. And we ended up driving the rest of the trip with some duct tape holding the front of the trailer together. So we just had to buy some pieces to screw the trailer back together.
Yep, just a quick ghetto fix.
Number 11's from at Steven2. Talk about your ghost tour more.
Oh, so when we were in Deadwood, South Dakota, we went on a haunted tour of the Fairmont Hotel, used to be called the European Hotel, which used to be a hotel and brothel all the way up until like the 1980s, and now it's a hotel, bar, casino. And it's the same spot that the TV show Ghost Adventures went to, and we saw that advertised on their sign outside, and it was like, tours nightly, $20, as seen on Ghost Adventures. And we went on one in the Birdcage Theater in Arizona when we were on our last road trip, and it was amazing. So we were like, well, it can't be bad. Like, there's no bad ghost tour. So we went on it. Oh, this one was even better than that one. They walk you through the whole hotel in almost complete darkness. They tell you all the things that have happened in those places, and there's a lot of supernatural, spiritual stuff that they talk about, but they also just jam-pack the tour with historical facts and evidence, and they talk a lot about the history of brothels, the history of the hotel, the history of the town. There was a woman who lived and worked in the brothel there who had killed herself, and it was the 40th, 30th?
Yeah, it was the anniversary of her death. Well, not of her death, of her jumping out the window, and then she died 3 days later in hospital. But the day that we were there was the anniversary of when she actually jumped out the window, which was pretty cool, I guess.
At rando_fan_club wants to know, what are your top tips for saving money when you go on long road trips like this? I know it's always going to be sort of expensive, but I was wondering if you guys had any good money saving ideas or experiences, because y'all seem to travel a lot.
Well, we don't eat out a lot. Like, we eat out once in a while, but it's very rare that we'll go to a restaurant 3 times a day. We like to cook a lot, and especially with the trailer.
Yeah, we only really ate like the state foods.
Yeah, we try to keep it to
And
state
Sonic.
food.
We went
And
to Sonic.
Yeah, Sonic a lot.
And you can save money on camping and stuff if you camp in. There's lots of really nice truck stops across America where you can overnight camp and they don't charge you anything. It's just a pull through parking spot. Or even, it sounds ghetto, but you can camp at a Walmart. When we were in Nebraska, we talked to a police officer who said in Nebraska you can literally camp anywhere. As long as you're not on the road, they do not care at all. So check your state laws, check where you're allowed to stay, and don't be afraid to camp at Walmart. It's not as ghetto as you think it is.
Yeah, it's not that bad. Or rest stops on the highways. Then skip all the overrated shit. Like 100%. Don't go to a tourist trap. It's not worth it. We if you want souvenirs from us, we normally get them at a Value Village or a thrift store. Just because why do you want to pay $30 for a t-shirt that someone's gonna put back to Value Village after 3 years? Because I mean, who cares, really?
It's true, and you find some of the best ones there. When we were in Arizona, we got Arizona t-shirts at a Savers in Arizona because no one in Arizona wants an Arizona t-shirt. Fun fact.
It's true.
Also, you want to use a bunch of the apps. Like, they have an app to save money on everything now, and you should use that to your advantage. You want to use stuff like Airbnb and Groupon and...
Booking for hotels work. There's one for camping called Campienda we used a lot.
Also, there's tons of free stuff everywhere. You just have to look for it. So if you just do a quick Google and you look up free stuff to do in insert blank, then it'll normally tell you where like the best scenic walks are, or hikes, or waterfalls, or there was even when we were in Ogallala, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, don't come at me.
I think it was Ogallala.
There's a place called Mansion on the Hill, which is a totally free mansion, schoolhouse, and shop museum.
Yeah, it was actually really cool. And number 13 from Silly Sarah 14. How do you guys find all these unseen and niche places to go on your road trips all the time? It seems like you're always going to cool places that I've never heard of and no one else is. Well, I make maps on Google Maps by using this the website called Roadside Attraction. Just Google it, and then you can actually download a Google map onto your phone. And then you can take those and you can plot out your own trips on your own map if you really want. That's how I do some of the planning. And then if you see any kind of attraction on the side of the road, just stop.
Oh, definitely. Everywhere in the States and even some places in Canada, they have these brown signs everywhere. And it's kind of a 50-50 gamble because every once in a while it'll be a plaque. Or there's like one in Saskatchewan that's hilariously infamous because it's just a big rock. But every once in a while, you'll hit one that's worth taking the stop for. And they all just say historical marker in this many feet or meters, depending on where you're at. Stop at all of them. Or if you hear one that sounds funny and you're like, wouldn't it be funny if it was blah, 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 blah? Even if it isn't that thing, it'll probably still be worth the trip and it'll be worth the story. Where are we at now? Oh, 14. At K Petcher says... Matt, sing your Peaches song! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, 100 exclamation points.
I don't really want to sing.
Oh, I think you gotta sing the Peaches song.
Millions of peaches, peaches for me. Millions of peaches, peaches for free. That's all I really know about that song. If you want to listen to the full version, it's called Peaches by the Presidents of the United States of America. It's from like 1997 or something stupid. Go listen to it.
I had never heard of it before this trip, but everywhere we went, Matt started singing insert whatever thing we were gonna get or place we were gonna go into the song. So when we were in BC, he was like singing about how we were gonna go to a different part of BC, and he was like, going to Vernon, gonna eat me lots of peaches. And I had never heard the song, so I assumed they were famous for peaches. They're not.
No.
At Andre Regergager 1992 says, do you ever get homesick when you're traveling?
Honestly, I just miss my cat and some of the regular comforts of home, like the bed and I don't know, like a good shower. Well, when we stay in hotels, the shower's not that big of a deal, but mostly I just miss Gingy.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me, like the biggest comfort of home, was when we were traveling, we were eating everything out of a cooler, so you buy ice to keep the bottom cold. And I swear to God, we put like Ziploc bags around the food, Ziploc bags around the ice, a little shelf down. Somehow, all the time, everything got wet. So on day like 14 of our trip, I was like, I don't really want to go home. Wouldn't it be nice to eat food that wasn't soaking wet all the time?
Yeah, that was really annoying, having wet everything. Number 16 here is Iceman Dad _QQ. Is it true?
QQ.
Is it true that vegetarian/vegan food is better in the States?
It's not necessarily better, but it's definitely more accessible. We went to 4 or 5 different grocery stores, like a Walmart.
Walmart had a lot of options.
There was so many options and like the variety of options. So in Canada, if you go to a Walmart, there's normally 3 major brands that sell stuff. There's like St. Ives and then Guardian and Morningstar. And even the brands that we have, they have like 10 times the amount of products that we have down there. Like Morningstar has a whole line of popcorn chickens and breakfast sausages and Nashville hot chicken and just tons and tons of items. But when you come back to Canada, they have like a sweet potato burger and a black bean burger, and that's it. That's all Morningstar sells here.
I noticed they had a lot more microwavable vegetarian options. Normally you can't really get many microwavable options, but they had like full-on breakfast sandwiches that are vegetarian, which is, I guess, a little bit better, but we never got any because we didn't have a microwave.
That might be true of just like everything in general in the States though, because of like their FDA rule. We noticed that there's just a lot more options for everything. So even like, we think we have lots of options for cereal in the States, but they have like 2 full aisles of cereal in their Walmarts. Just anything you want turned into a cereal. Cinnamon Toast Crunch, churros, Sour Patch Kids.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch stuffed with filling, like it's just
wild.
There's a lot of wild options. All right, this one, number 17, comes from Johnny Tot, 12. How was the state fair? Did you try any crazy food there?
It was kind of overrated.
It was overrated. I don't know if it was the state fair we went to and call it, like we went to the Colorado State Fair. I don't know. I thought it was overrated.
It was cool. It was nice. Maybe it was the day we were there because it was so unbelievably hot. But it didn't seem like there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
It kind of rivaled like the exhibition, like the traveling one that comes around in the summer in Canada.
And then for food, there was no really food we haven't tried before. I wanted to try a giant turkey leg, but I didn't want to spend $12 American on a turkey leg.
Also, who wants to eat a super hot turkey leg when it's plus 41 out?
Yeah, it was way too hot to do that.
Ooh.
Number 18, I think.
At Kadir_Can says, is Target really as amazing as Americans say it is? How is it better than Walmart? Target is better than Walmart, but basically just Zellers when we had it. It's not that exciting, but it's like their version of a Zellers.
It's a fancier Walmart, and we used to have it here in Canada, and I don't know. I just thought it was more expensive.
They have a couple things that are like good deals. Like every once in a while, Target will have like $5 bathing suits. But also, you can buy all of that stuff online and have it shipped to your house. So you're not missing out by not having a Target. You just need to go online. The last
2 pages.
Hainsley Attacks 34 says, if you were to do your trip again, is there any other states or things that you would want to see?
I would like to go down deeper south, like Texas and Tennessee. I like to see those southern states and see the way they live, because I think that would be a big culture change with a lot more guns.
I also think it would be a crazy history, like a Wild Wild West history. Yeah, I kind of want to see like the more southern party states, like Louisiana and
north or what is it, New Orleans? I think New Orleans would be really
New
fun.
Orleans.
Georgia.
Last question.
Number 20. Here we go. This one is from Megan Adidity 17. This is a good question. What was the most overrated and the most underrated part of your trip?
Ooh, do you want to go first or you want me to go first?
Oh, you go first.
I think the most overrated part was cities. Denver specifically, because that is the least camping friendly city I've ever seen in the most camping friendly state. Like, it's ridiculous. Denver is out of control. Everyone is mean. There was a point where we were trying to camp in a campground and they only took trailers that were newer than 2001. Like, it didn't matter how nice it was, just hard, fast rule, newer than 2001. And then we went to a different campground. They would accept any trailer, like literally anything. But when you pull up, the guy in the trailer beside where you check in is doing heroin in front of his. So it's a real toss-up. Everyone in Denver just, I'm sure some of you were nice. Everyone we met sucked. I'm just over cities.
It was just a rough trip. Like that part in Colorado, it was, we spent 8 hours trying to find somewhere to stay. And when we thought we found somewhere, there was open spots, but then they didn't accept our trailer because it was too old. And I was just like,
and it wasn't even broken and ugly at this point.
Yeah, it was actually in decent, it was in good shape at the time. It just, KOAs, but they're expensive. That's where we ended up staying. For me, I think the Crazy Horse Monument was definitely, I know it's not done, but I thought it was overrated. It hasn't really started. There's 200 years left, they say, in building it, but it was so overrated because we heard about it, and like, it's nothing. It's
Everyone
really
keeps
nothing.
saying it's the next Mount Rushmore, but I don't see it. Like, maybe I don't know the backstory or the history enough, but
We
I
didn't take
just
photos
see
of
it.
it. That's a little event, is we just didn't even take photos of it. What about your most underrated part?
my most underrated, actually the most underrated part of our whole trip for me was probably Nebraska, only because I didn't know any of the history or significance behind Nebraska, because it's one of those states that you just like forget about. Sorry about people
It's
from
true,
Nebraska. But we got there and like everything we learned about Nebraska was just more and more savagery.
Yeah.
Like, they have an insane history. Like, in the gold rush, people used to go to Nebraska on the Oregon Trail, and it was like the last stop before you hit all of this areas with gold in it. And people would stand on the Nebraska side, set up camp, and be like, oh yeah, Oregon Trail that way, like tourist style, and be like, come back and tell us how you did afterwards. Can't wait to hear from you. So these people, thinking that they were nice, would come back and be like, oh, we found all this gold. And then the people from Nebraska would rob them. They would just take it.
Yeah.
And they did it over and over and over again, like swindlers. And there was that whole town in Nebraska where, like, there's just one town that's underneath a lake, because they went there and they were like, oh, there's no lakes in Nebraska. We need to build a lake. It's going to go right here. And the people of that town were like, you can't put it here. We live here. And they were like, you know what, actually, we're going to put it here no matter what you say. We'll come back in 30 days with a boat if you haven't moved. And the people in the town thought they were joking, and they were like, they can't do that. So they flooded their town, came back with a boat, and were like, get in, loser. Like,
Yeah, if you
what
want,
are you going to do?
you can see the roofs of the building apparently when the tide is low. I think it was Lemoyne. Was the name of the town.
Yeah, it was something like that.
And then
It's just outside of Ogallala.
Ogallala, yeah. I
Probably
think it was
don't
I think it was
know.
Lemoyne. Yeah, I think it was Lemoyne.
Lamont? Lemoyne?
I think it was Lemoyne because it was the same name off Red Dead Redemption too. That's the only reason why I remember it's the name.
Okay, guys, fun fact. Everywhere we went, anytime we went hiking, Matt would literally point at like any tree that was slightly misshapen and be like, oh, look, it's a trail tree like Red Dead Redemption.
That's true. What was that park we went to right outside of in Nebraska there? That little national monument on the Oregon Trail.
Oh, I don't
Remember those pictures we got with the Oregon Trail Reagans? Anyways, that was pretty cool. I wouldn't say it's underrated, but it's definitely something to see if you're there. For me, the most underrated part was probably Deadwood. Like, I love Wild West history, and I only heard about Deadwood right before we went on our trip. It was actually Sabrina's uncle that kind of told us about it. And I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. And he said he liked it as much as Tombstone in Arizona. So we checked it out, and I was really amazed. They do, 14 street performances of reenactments of the shootings there a day, 6 days a week they do it. And they're all really good, they're funny, the people are good, and they don't go around begging for tips after, they just do it and they love it. And then all the history there and everything is a casino, including a Starbucks. Like, anywhere that's on the historical Main Street is a casino. It doesn't matter what it is. They're all casinos.
Well, it's all everywhere that used to be a brothel is now a casino.
Yeah. And there's lots of, we didn't go see them because we kind of ran short on time, is like in the hills behind actual historic Main Street, there were just brothels all up in there too. And they called them saloons, I think. Mm-hmm. And there was a bunch of brothels there. We never got to even see all that stuff. We just stuck to the Main Street because there was just so much to explore there.
Actually, my favorite thing in Deadwood, we didn't even see, but they had one in Deadwood, and then they had one in Ogallala. All across like the Wild West areas, historically, they have what they call Boot Hill cemeteries. Mm. And those cemeteries were like, the cowboys were so down, dirty, bad, like just tough dudes that they were buried with their cowboy boots physically still on them because they would not give them up. And I just think that's wild.
Well, they had no coffins. They just buried them in the dirt. Yeah. Like, just boots on, bury them in the dirt, and call them good there.
Called it a day. And people went back later and like marked some of them, but they didn't mark all of them.
Yeah. That was pretty cool. It was a good trip.
That was pretty much our whole trip. There was nowhere that was like particularly bad except Denver. Fuck Denver. And
I think Denver could have been good if we didn't have a trailer trying to find somewhere to camp. I think you could have had a good time, but we had a bad experience. Don't add any of us about Denver being cool because we didn't really experience too much, and rather than trying to find a spot to put our trailer.
Yeah. If you're from Denver and you're cool, don't talk to me. I don't want to know. But that's all of our questions. I'm sorry if your question was a repeat question so that you didn't get mentioned in the video, but we could only answer them so many times. And to anyone who still has any questions that are not related to the trip, keep sending them in. We love hearing from you, and we might put them in a future video. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for sending in all of your questions, comments, and anyone who sent in travel tips, places to go, things to eat. Thank you so much for all of your input, and thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks a lot.